Good day, everyone. My name is Paul Nunnari. I'm CEO of Inclusively Made, and I'm here with my co-host and founder. I'll let you, Henry, introduce himself in a moment. But we're here to talk to you about what we do at Inclusively Made, and the title of our presentation today is the global standard for inclusion for film, TV, and and advertising. Are you in? And yeah, we're really excited. Henry and I are both based in Sydney, so there's a significant time change, but yeah, really looking forward to sharing our presentation with you all today. We encourage any type of questions you might have in regards to what we do, but also if you want to share any of your anecdotes or experiences in inclusion and production, please ask a question at any point in time. Over to you, Henry.
Fabulous. Hello, everyone. My name is Henry Smith. I'm the founder of Inclusively Made, and yes, calling in from the Blue Mountains in Australia. So it's the sunny Blue Mountains, but it's quite late at night here, so not quite. So I hope your day is a little bit sunnier and brighter than ours is at the moment. And we are very excited to be able to share with you and talk with you. It's an absolute privilege to talk about inclusion in film, television, and advertising. I wish we were there at the conference with you to see some of the other speakers, but the lineup looked fantastic. So to start and share a little bit about what we do, we might share a little promo video about what Inclusively Made actually is, and then we'll share a bit of our story and unpack it and have a chat through. Here we are.
Every person deserves to be reflected in the stories we tell. Unfortunately, for 20% of the world, this isn't the case. 1 in 5 people live with disability, yet representation of people with disability remains inexcusably low. That's where Inclusively Made comes in.
Inclusively Made, take 1.
Welcome to the world first inclusion initiative that's reshaping the landscape of film, television and advertising. Inclusively Made is the global standard for inclusion in production. Certifying your campaign, TV series or film will provide a platform for people with disability to engage and thrive in our creative industry and be reflected in the stories that we tell. But what exactly does it mean to be inclusive? An Inclusively Made production has achieved certification from a range of actions across 8 pillars of inclusion. Ensuring people with disability are involved in production both in front and behind the camera, Inclusively Made helps organisations to create inclusive productions with ease. Join with us to make inclusion the new standard in production.
There we are. Inclusively Made. So Inclusively Made was birthed out of a need for, obviously, inclusion in production. So I started my career as a filmmaker in feature film. 15 years ago, I met my now wife who was working in television, and we started a film production company creating content for organizations, creating brand films and TV commercials and whatnot here in Australia. And at the same time, she had just started an inclusive film school called Bus Stop Films, which is Australia's first film school for people with disability. And it started as one class in Australia, and then has now quickly expanded out. But in its early stages, we incubated the film school within our film production company to make sure that it thrived. And the values of including people with a disability were nothing special for us. We would include people with a disability in front and behind camera in everything we did. Whether we were making a bank ad or a disability campaign, it didn't matter. We were always being inclusive. And so the origins of inclusion for us were really quite special. So my wife had been brought onto a documentary by Down Syndrome Australia, and she was making a documentary about the way that families were living and then support that they were giving to their kids who had Down syndrome. And she was asked to go and meet a young man who was going to come and join the program and join the documentary. And so she went out to his house and knocked at his front door. And instead of him opening and saying, "Hi, my name's Jared, nice to meet you," he stood there on the doorway and recited the entire balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet from Shakespeare. And immediately, my wife Genevieve knew that there was something quite special about this young man. And she started talking to him and quickly found out that his greatest desire in life was to be an actor. But no one would give him the opportunity to be able to perform or to be considered as a serious person. And so she, in her final year of film school, threw away her idea for her final film and made a film about Jared, this young man with Down syndrome. And as she was working through the idea and writing it with Jared, she realized that she needed to make this inclusively in front and behind the camera. So she put a call out to a small community of people with disability and said, "Hey, if you'd like to learn how to work on a professional film, let me know, and I will come and teach you." So 5 people put their hand up, and in Genevieve's living room, she conducted the first ever film school for people with disability in Australia. And that film went on to win Australia's largest short film festival for Best Film, and Jared won Best Male Actor. And suddenly we realized there was a great need to create opportunities and pathways for people with a disability because there was no other opportunity. This was the only thing that people with a disability had to get into film and television in Australia. So she started this film school, and we incubated it within our film company. And we would always create productions inclusively just because we saw a need and we realized that we could fill that. Over the last 15 years, I've spent 14 years going around to film producers and production companies and broadcasters and creative agencies and showcased inclusive production. And everyone's looked at me and said, "Wow, that's really inspiring. I'm glad you're doing it." Basically, what they were saying is, "We think this is a good idea, but we have no demand for this. We're already too busy with budgets. We've got to shoot tomorrow. We've got pressures, whatever else." And so we had no success in expanding out inclusive production beyond just what we were doing. And then Unilever out of London reached out to us and said, "We want to get quite serious about our inclusive production." And as many of you would know, Unilever own many of the world's FMCG brands, a vast majority of them. And we spent about a year working with them to build out training modules to help their creative agencies and their internal production teams to learn how to create productions inclusively, both in front and behind the camera. And at the end of that year, they said, they made a global announcement and said, by 2025, every Unilever production over £100,000 will be made inclusively. And we were absolutely blown away because this boulder that we'd been pushing up a hill of trying to get others to be inclusive in production, we'd spent 15 years pushing it up, and Unilever overnight just pushed it down. And they're in an alliance called the Unstereotype Alliance alongside P&G, who own a vast majority of the other FMCG brands. And they said, "We're doing the exact same thing." And so in the last 12 months, we've seen this rapid global demand for inclusion in production across advertising, film, and television. And so that has become the birth of Inclusively Made, which we'll take you through today, which is very exciting. Paul.
Thanks, Henry, and that's a nice segue into my story as well. So you would have seen in the intro video on the Inclusively Made framework, that was me. I am a wheelchair user, and I've had my disability since a young age. And I'm very passionate about what we do here at Inclusively Made, because as a child growing up with my disability, I never saw myself ever reflected in the content that I saw on TV, film, or any kind of brand campaigns. The only content that I saw was how negative it was to be a person with disability. In my case, how negative it was to be a wheelchair user. And so a lot of that content was very much based around that medical model of disability, where having disability was seen as being a weakness and something that you had to be fixed, cured, or healed of. So when inclusively, to Henry's point, when at the genesis of Inclusively Made, and what we're all about, it's about ensuring that authentic representation of people with disability, both in front and behind camera. and ensuring that that representation is in line with that social model of disability. And that social model of disability is that people with disability don't need to be fixed, cured, or healed. We just need to have communication barriers, institutional barriers, physical barriers, attitudinal barriers removed. And by doing that, people with disability can contribute in a dignified, equitable way and make a valuable contribution to whatever they do. And I really see what we produce, the content that we produce, as being a big player in removing those barriers, particularly those attitudinal barriers and a lot of those unconscious and conscious biases that people have towards disability. And by seeing that authentic representation, by seeing myself reflected in the stories that I see, and all people with disability seeing themselves reflected, it gives us the opportunity to speak about or to share our narrative from our perspective and not from somebody else's. So the 8 pillars ensure that that's consistently done. And in our experience, clients always ask or say, we want to be inclusive, but we don't know where to start, or we don't know where to be, or we don't want to be tokenistic. And so the framework ensures that there is no tokenism at all, because it's done in a way, and Henry will talk through the pillars in a second, but it's done in a way that every part of that production process, from concept to the very end to broadcast, considers accessibility inclusion. And it's done in a way that any organisation can embed this as business as usual. And that's what we want. Ultimately, we want inclusion to be done as business as usual. And to Henry's point, it can be done on any type of campaign. It doesn't have to be disability specific. Over to Henry.
Absolutely. So I'll step us through how it works and what's been built out, because the goal of Inclusively Made certification is to equip everyone to be able to do this themselves. We believe that there's no point of having a couple of global experts that everybody needs to go to and be funneled through just 1 or 2 gatekeepers of inclusion, but that everybody should be building this, as Paul said, as business as usual. On a film production or a TV commercial, it's just part of how we work, and not only on specifically disability campaigns, but on a TV commercial for a car or for a bank ad or for whatever it is. We need to be inclusive, because as we all know, 1 in 5 people globally have disability. And so therefore we need to be representing that, not just in front of camera, but behind camera, creating opportunities for people with disability, just like we saw 15 years ago for Jared here in Australia, who's now gone on to be a fabulous award-winning actor. People with disability need to have those opportunities like everybody else. So I'll share a little bit about how the certification works and how a production gets certified. So certification is really very simple. So at the start of a project, regardless of what it is, we work with an organisation to create an inclusion plan. And this is all automated online through an online inclusion planner. And this we'll take you through this today, so you can see just how simple it is to create an inclusion plan for a project. Then once the inclusion plan is created, the producer is then equipped to go and create their production as they would normally, except now they understand what they need to do to be inclusive. And what we've found with all the organisations that we work with is that producers go through the plan and realize they're doing 80 to 90% of this already. They just weren't aware of how to be inclusive. It's just that little extra step. And once involved from the very beginning, organizations are able to be inclusive very easily. This isn't something that is expensive, takes more time, or is going to reduce the quality of the production. In fact, it actually makes the production that much better because it's been authentically created and it represents society. Then once the project is shot, or the catalogue has been, or the stills have been captured, whatever it is, the organisation comes back during their post-production, and we go back through that inclusion plan to talk about what changed. Did you achieve everything in that plan? How did you go? And then the production is certified. And to be able to put the inclusively made stamp at the end of the film, TV commercial, feature, TV series, whatever it is. So inclusion is built up from 8 pillars of inclusion, from inclusive concept development all the way through to accessible broadcast. Now, these have been built out from our 1.5 decades of experience of working out what actually goes into making a production inclusively. What we realize as well is that every project is different. There's no cookie cutter mold that is going to make every project the same. It's not how production works. So these pillars are built out to empower an organization to choose what's right for that project. So going through each of these pillars, inclusive concept development is about engaging either people with disability or community organizations to come and either consult or write in as part of the writing process so that the ideas are authentic and reflective of society. Otherwise, they can be a little tone deaf and miss the point. Then accessible auditions and inclusive casting is including people with a disability, obviously in front of camera in production roles. So this doesn't always mean lead roles either. We're very passionate about ensuring that when you see a picture with people in it, that at least 20% of those people should be people with disability, either people with visible disability or a non-visible disability. It's really important to be including people with disabilities so that we are seeing society reflected in everything that we create. Then inclusive mentoring is about work experience. So this is creating opportunities for people with a disability to start in the industry. When I was 16 or 17, I got my work experience opportunity on a feature film. And obviously it was very hard work being a work experience kid, but that's how we start. If you're a person with disability, those options are very limited. So this certification creates those pathways through fantastic productions. And then similarly, inclusive crew roles is about employing people with disability in professional crew roles. Now, we always guide our clients that this is not a tokenistic role. This is not given to a person with disability who doesn't have those skill sets. It's about giving those roles to people that have earned those roles and have that experience to be able to do so. And this is creating a pipeline of people with a disability to come into the space and work up professionally to the highest levels of production. Then, of course, accessible documentation is ensuring that all the communication for the project is accessible to everyone that requires it. Similarly, that accessible locations are accessible to everyone, creating a safe and inclusive environment for everybody that's part of the project. And then, of course, accessible broadcast to make sure that once you've made your production, it's accessible to everyone to be able to watch it, to be able to engage it. We're amazed at the amount of projects that people spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in making, and there's a percentage of the population that can't actually engage with it. So we step people through how to do that. So those are the 8 pillars. To then get certified, a production needs to get a minimum of 100 points across those pillars. So they're able to pick and choose what are they going to do for their project, because as we said, every project is different. And so they're able to tailor the project to whatever the production's requirements are with budget, timeline, and the parameters of the concept. Then to create the inclusion plan at the very start. This is what the online inclusion planner looks like. So a producer or a creative agency, a production company comes through and is able to tick each of the areas of what they're able to fulfill and see their points go up and down. And we'll take you through a bit of a live demo of this today to see how that works. But this puts the power into the producer's hands, so they're in charge of what they're going to do. And once they've done this a couple of times, we're seeing producers really charging ahead because they've now got the skill sets and are empowered to know what they're doing and to be able to lead this through, which is fabulous. Once their plan is created, it automatically creates an inclusion plan, which is a 12-page PDF that's sent to that production that breaks down what are they going to do throughout their production to achieve their points. Now, what this does is this gives the production not just a roadmap to inclusive production, but it gives them the confidence to know what they're doing from an inclusion standpoint and know that they're at a standard to be able to get certified. So there's no fear that they're going to get to the end of the project and have all the best intentions but fall short. This means that they're going to production knowing exactly what they're doing and exactly what they need. It also helps them to see that that if there's any areas where they need any assistance, if they're not sure how to go about inclusive casting or where to hire a mentee or how to do accessible broadcast, Inclusively Made has built out a database of inclusion partners of organizations that specialize in those skill sets to be able to connect in with recruitment or access service or whatnot. Because a lot of people are very fearful about where do you actually start and how do you actually do it. So we've made that very, very simple, which is fabulous. Then the last piece that's included in certification is our resource kit. So this is full of guides, templates, and production paperwork to take the guesswork out of how to be inclusive and how to do it. This is a great resource that organizations are now able to use to be able to fly through their project with ease and with confidence, and to be able to do as much of it themselves as they'd like, which is great. Now I'm going to pop back to our audience because I'd love to get someone to volunteer. We're going to run through a live demo to see how a project works. Is there someone that would like to be brave that could switch on their camera, say hello, and be a volunteer to help me? If you'd be very brave, would someone be able to do that? If not, that's okay. Paul, I'll get you to be my volunteer and we'll step through a project and show really how it works, and you can see a production happening in real time. So
yeah, let's do an Adidas commercial.
Fabulous. So we'll pop in some details. So Paul's going to be our producer on this one, Paul. Thanks, Paul. And paul@paul.com. So obviously these details would change for every project, but Paul's going to be our guinea pig for today. So Paul, what's your production going to be called?
London Marathon promotion.
Right. And your client was Adidas, was it?
Yep.
And let's say it's your creative agency, Paul's agency. Terrible branding, but hey, Paul, that's your new agency.
All fine.
How long is your shoot, Paul? How many days?
We're going to go 15 days.
Wow, big shoot. Fabulous. Great. And then what is your budget range?
Our budget range for this one will be 2 million.
Great. It's 1 to 5 million. And then the person responsible, Paul, I'll help you out, and I can be the person responsible for your plan. So we're halfway through. So that's a very simple component of just popping in all the details. We then have the choice to be able to do this yourself, or book in an inclusion plan. So you can bring in an inclusively made facilitator to take you through it. For today, we're going to complete it ourselves because you've already got us. We're going to step you through exactly how it works. So on the left-hand side, we've got the amount of points that Paul's currently at. So that's obviously at 0, as our points will go up. We'll go through and select each of these criteria. So here's those 8 pillars that we saw before. And on the right-hand side, we've got a section that we can always learn more. For a lot of producers that have never done anything like this can be quite scary. So we've explained what is inclusive casting, given a real basic breakdown of what does that actually involve. It also explains in the resource kit, what do you get there to help you? So there's a guide on equal representation. There's a template for a casting brief. There's a guide for how to run accessible auditions. So it really puts the skill sets in their hands to be able to do so. We then also have the expectations around certification. So when they come back during post-production, we explain what are we going to be looking for to be able to certify your project, to take all the guesswork and the fear out of it. Inclusively Made is very much on the mentality of helping people through the line rather than being the stick to their back or another hoop that they've got to jump through. So Paul, let's work through your plan. So for your production for this London Marathon promo, will you be able to create an inclusive concept during the development phase?
Yeah, London Marathon has a fantastic wheelchair division, and we'd like to feature some wheelchair athletes with non-disabled athletes in the promo.
Great, fantastic, great use of it. Then the casting, will that be an inclusive cast that we're going to see on camera?
Yeah, so we're going to have 3 key lead roles, and one of those roles we'll probably dedicate to a wheelchair athlete.
Super, perfect. And then the audition process, will you be able to conduct that accessibly so that when you say that you want to cast inclusively, you actually can follow through on that, and then people can actually come to your auditions and be involved completely?
Yeah, so we're going to provide 2 options. One option will be a face-to-face, and the audition location is fully accessible. And the second option is a virtual option, which is flexible, and adaptive for everyone as well. So both options will definitely be available to any person with a cognitive, sensory, or physical disability to participate. But in this case, the focus will be on physical disability.
Great. Excellent. Lovely. Then inclusive mentoring. So this is when you're able to bring on mentees to be able to learn on your production. Is that something that this project can accommodate?
Yeah, we'd love that to happen as part of this project, given that, we've got disability representation. So we'll definitely at least provide the opportunity for 2 mentees to be part of the process.
Great. Lovely. So how this works here is obviously we can choose how many people we are going to be able to engage. Based on the size of Paul's budget and the amount of shoot days, it recommends how many mentees is a starting point. If you're doing a 1-day shoot and it's a very small budget, engaging one person with disability as a mentee, great starting point. But if you're doing a feature film and you're shooting for 60 days and you've got a $50 million budget and you say, oh, we'll just hire one person with a disability for 1 day, this will come back and say, you need to be doing more than that. Based on the ratio of your production, you should be doing some more. So what we've got here is a bit of a guide to help Paul in his planning as a producer. If Paul knows who his mentees are, we can actually pop some names in there because he's worked with Johnny before and he wants to bring Johnny back. That's great. The second one, we might not know who that is. We're going to do a bit of a recruitment to create that opportunity. But Paul, where would they be sitting? So we've got the opportunity to pick for pre-production and post, actually plan how many days they might do. Where do you think these 2 roles might sit?
Yeah, we'll definitely offer one opportunity for pre, just so they can be part of that, that concept development, ideation stage, and get to see how that works kind of, before the shoot happens. And then we'll definitely provide something during the shoot as well. And then and continue that through post-production.
Yep, great. So I'll just pop in some days here just so we can see kind of roughly how it works. So we can see that our points have gone up because it's based on giving people with a disability an opportunity, which is fantastic. We've got the recommended day rate as an entry-level work experience role based on each of your country's standards for that. We've also got the opportunity to put daily expenses in there. If each of those person had any support that you're aware of that you could, from a financial point, you can pop that in there. Now, we're not concerned from a certification point about these numbers at all. This is purely for your planning, because the second question that we always get after where do we find people that can fill these roles, the second question is, then how much is this going to cost me? So this helps a producer to be able to plan this out, take it back to their client or the production company, show, here's our inclusion plan. This is roughly the sort of cost. So for Paul's project, we're looking at about $10,000 for this work experience project. You might look at that and go, oh, that's a bit too much. So you might be able to change your days down there. It just helps your planning, which is great. Okay, Paul, so we've got mentees and then crew roles. Is there opportunities to hire people with a disability as crew?
Yeah, we'd love to provide 2 crew role opportunities.
Yep.
And we think, given the shoot days, the number of shoot days, and the type of project, it's a fun project that would definitely be possible.
Right. So if we pop them both, and let's say they're both, let's be interesting. Let's say that one of those roles is a head of department. During productions, they're going to have a couple of days of pre. You've got your production days there, and this has no post. But someone else might be an editor assist, or an editor, or a color grader, whatever it is, and so they might be involved in post. We'll pop in some day rates because that's an entry level higher role, maybe they're a bit even higher for the head of department, and it's an entry level role for the second crew member. So that's looking pretty good. Again, it gives us a bit of a ballpark of what that's going to be. These would be line items, of course, in your production budget, because these are roles that you'd hire on your production. This is nothing tokenistic. These are roles on your project, but you're ensuring that people with a disability are getting the opportunity to work on your project as well, which is great. Well done, Paul. Then we've got accessible documentation. Are you able to ensure that all the documents that you create and send out are accessible to everyone that requires it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a standard process, we send all our call sheets and other types of documentation electronically. We send them in Word, so if anyone who's blind, low vision requires them. They can be adapted via screen reader. We also use easy read format, so anyone with a cognitive or intellectual disability, or anyone who's neurodiverse for that matter, can follow what instruction in those schedules quite easily, and it's not kind of lost in arduous amounts of print. So there are two formats, and in our experience, they've worked pretty well and been inclusive for everyone.
Fabulous. Great. Paul, my apologies. I missed something earlier as well in our crew. I forgot to select. I'll ask you, like, are you wanting to hire an access coordinator on your project to be able to help through this process and help facilitate the inclusive production?
Yeah, we'd like to. We want this production to be best practice, and having an access coordinator just to ensure that all of our crew and mentees and our talent are supported. I think is a really great way to be able to do that.
Fabulous. Great. Then the sixth pillar, accessible location. So you mentioned that you were going to be engaging people with disability in front and behind camera in those roles. How are you going to make sure that your locations are accessible so they can participate in production?
Yeah, so we're going to film on London Bridge, which is part of the London Marathon course. All of that area is accessible, and we'll be able to host anyone across physical, sensory, or cognitive disability, and in every shoot location we'll be shooting.
Right. Excellent. And then a safe and inclusive environment. This is about ensuring that everyone feels valued, but also obviously safe on your project. Will you be able to include a statement of inclusion on your call sheet to be able to share that this production is being made inclusively and that everybody's a valued part of the production?
Yeah, we've actually used inclusion statement previously on other shoots that we've done. And we've actually found that just by having something as simple as an inclusion statement read out before every shoot, not only makes people with disability who've come specifically on that project feel welcome and safe to share, but actually people or crew that we've worked with over in some cases decades actually share that they've got depression or some type of anxiety or mental health consideration, whatever the case might be. We're very passionate about ensuring that all of our crew and cast feel safe and listened to, and that inclusion statement actually is a really great way to be able to do that. So definitely we will, and we'll make sure that that's read out every day, and through those access coordinators as well, they can support any crew, any cast who may need any type of support throughout the shoot.
Fabulous. Great. And the last thing is ensuring that what you've actually created is accessible to everybody. So what access services will you be able to include in your production?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. So this is going to be pretty edgy production, or content rather, and we'll definitely have captioning as part of that. But we're also going to incorporate an audio description of the content, but actually make it part of the commercial. So it'll be an audio description, which will focus on a person who's blind or hard of hearing being able to actually experience the commercial, obviously without being able to see it. But we're actually just going to have that as part of the stylization and the creative of the ad. So it's going to be really cool, and we're looking forward to sharing it.
Lovely. Great. So Paul, that completes our plan. You hit 154 points without really stressing too much. As you can see, so much of that is already part of the production process. There's nothing new in there, but being aware of things that you can do to make that inclusive is not very hard. So what happens right now is it automatically generates your inclusion plan, which gets automatically sent to you. Also the resource kit that we talked about before. So then, Paul, you're now equipped to go and create your production inclusively, and you can come back to Inclusively Made if there's any resources that you need or any assistance in any of those areas. We can come and consult or support you with great organizations that can do so, it just shows how simple certification is. Fabulous.
Thanks, Henry. That was very simple.
I realise that.
Well, great. So, Paul, do you want to step us through kind of what we're seeing here with organizations that have been picking this up and running with it, and the success that they've been having.
Yeah, this is really cool. Really excited to be able to share these examples of case studies with you all today. So you would have hopefully seen some of the recent Paris Paralympic Games. I know that over in the UK, Channel 4 is is probably the main broadcaster of the games over there, and Channel 4, for that matter, has been a leader in the way they promote athletes with disability, particularly around the Paralympics, and have really kind of benchmarked best practice. I think at least since 2008, even in 2004, and I know for London 2012 they were really leading the way. So the equivalent over here is Channel 9, and Channel 9 had the broadcast this year, and we worked with Channel 9 across all areas of that broadcast to ensure that it was inclusively made. And we're really proud of the work that we did with Channel 9. They were certified inclusively made, shared the ident across the visual across what the content you saw on TV, but all of their print content as well. And it was just really great to see their commitment to not only providing opportunities for people with disability to be behind camera, but also to be able to commentate as well. And even with the Olympic broadcast as well, I think the ratio was 50-50 in regards to having commentators with disability and commentators without disability. So it was a really great example. The other example we worked with was, the other organisation or company was Bupa. Bupa is like a healthcare, like health insurance company over here in Australia. I'm sure you've got equivalents over there, and Bupa might actually be into global for that matter. But Bupa is a major Paralympic sponsor, and also had a number of Paralympic ambassadors as part of their brand, and they did a number of commercials as well. And so we worked with Bupa to ensure that the representation of those ambassadors and their narrative around disability was in line with the 8 pillars. And actually the example Henry and I shared with you all in regards to the Adidas London Marathon example was very much in line with what people wanted to achieve as well. So that's another great example, and a project that was really well received. And Bupa really wanted to get it right. As I mentioned earlier, they didn't want it to be tokenistic, and they wanted to be inclusive, but they just didn't know where to start. And the framework gave them the certainty and increased their confidence to know the process, to know what they're doing on any type of project in the future, in the context of inclusion, and make that as business as usual. And we're very proud of that. And then the third organisation we'll share is Woolworths. And I know Woolworths is a massive, Woolworths, actually it was Big W. So I'll speak more to Big W, but Big W is a big kind of variety store over here in Australia. Very similar. You would have all heard of Walmart. So very similar, probably like a little brother to Walmart over here in Australia. But basically they sell all those kind of household type items. Big W, again, is very passionate about inclusion, not only in regards to the campaigns that they do, but also for the in-store experience. And so they want to see themselves reflected in their day-to-day engagement, the same as viewers see the brand reflected in the content they see, whether that's in a TV commercial, a print ad, social media, and so forth. So we've worked with Big W on a number of different projects, a number of different campaigns, and they're using that to kind of benchmark best practice across everything they do, including ultimately the products that they make and put on shelf as well. And that's really exciting to see that they're going beyond that certification framework and using the certification framework as a launch pad almost to kind of take what they do next level. And that's really, really exciting. Thanks, Henry.
So I might share just a quick case study video from Bupa. So this is a bit of an insight to, it's one thing to hear from Paul and I as advocates and champions of inclusive production, but to actually hear from those that are creating it. Now, as we might have mentioned, it's midnight over here in Australia. We didn't want to wake the client up, so we thought we might just show you a video instead from Bupa, the client behind one of the productions, and their creative agency, just to see how they ran as their first inclusive production, which is pretty cool. Here we are.
I realised I'd been overlooking the role of diversity and inclusion in the work that I'd been creating. It just wasn't something that was a thing that I processed or thought about when I was making work.
I think in the industry, people probably don't know how to quite approach inclusivity. Either they think it might be a burden to hold up production, or maybe they're too shy to ask the right questions or don't know what to say.
For 12 days every 4 years, we all rally around inclusion. But what about every other day?
Our latest campaign for the Paralympics builds on our position as the official healthcare partner of the Australian Paralympic team and highlights Bupa's commitment to inclusive and accessible healthcare, extending beyond the Games. So inclusion for us was non-negotiable from the start of this project, and that's why we wanted to work with a partner like Inclusively Made so that authenticity of that inclusion was represented throughout the project.
Think commitment to inclusion and diversity is one that we actually take really seriously. It's something that we've focused on for quite a while now to ensure that we embed it really authentically into everything we do, not just how we do it, but also into the work we put out into the world and how we put it out there.
Often we don't consider inclusivity until kind of further down the track, after we've had ideas, after we've started making a production schedule. But partnering with Inclusively Made allowed us to think about that from the outset, which made including an inclusive process really easy and seamless throughout.
Inclusion seemed a little overwhelming to start with, but as we worked with Inclusively Made and worked our way through the program, we realised that little by little, just small changes through the whole production process really added up to a lot by the end.
Working with Inclusively Made, it meant we always had someone to lean on, to ask, to talk to support us. And I think it was the confidence in how to integrate it right into the process, and the confidence that it wasn't going to affect the final output in any way. We'll get ads just as good as we always would.
At Bupa, we're investing in inclusive grassroots sports events around the country, helping more Aussies get their start in sports. That's healthcaring beyond the Games.
Creating the inclusion plan was quite straightforward. Once we realised that a few points from each part of production all started adding up, it became quite clear that we could make it to the 100 points quite easily, and then we're like, how high can we go? The support from Inclusively Made was great because it was very new what we were doing, from scripting to helping directors' treatments to post-production to having crew on the shoot. They were particularly helpful when we were looking for people for mentees for the shoot.
And there's a lot of this stuff that we don't know, You don't know what you don't know, and having Inclusively Made in our corner helps us navigate the path, make sure we're making the right choices, and get better each time we produce something, make something, do something, or even just how we behave.
We know that 1 in 5 people live with a disability in Australia, so it's really important that we represent all Australians across our communications, and our brand is reflective of that.
My hope for other agencies and brands is that they just embrace inclusion and diversity the same way that we have, and see it not as a barrier to success or creativity, but as something that can actually amplify all those things.
My hope is that this just becomes the norm, and that this just becomes part of everyday business and practice.
From our partnership with Inclusively Made, we've learnt that inclusive productions are possible. It's possible to get the right people in the right places in every production, if you plan for it in the beginning.
So our question to the industry right now is, are you in? As I shared, for 14 years, we were trying to encourage and inspire people, but now we are seeing this global demand for inclusion and authenticity, and including people with a disability in front, behind the camera, in film, TV and advertising is sweeping the world, and this demand is going to either catapult brands and organizations forward, or if they don't get on board, it's going to leave them behind. So our question is, are you in? Now, I'm wary of our time is coming to a close. If anyone had any questions, please feel free to pop in the chat or ask any questions. But if not, thank you very much for your time and coming to join our breakout session here.
Yeah, and it's been great being able to share our journey with you all and what we're doing with Inclusively Made. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us at 3wsinclusivelymade.com. And we look forward to hearing with you and supporting you on any part of your inclusion journey. Thank you.
Fabulous. And thank you to Kimberly and to Lydia, our Access Services team, who've been supporting this project. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you for joining us.